Yes, that's right. It's Joe here for Joyrider TV live with some more Q&A. Yes, I'm going to be attempting to answer your most challenging catamaran sailing questions. And we're going to dive straight in. Happy 4th of July, by the way, to everybody who is stateside or anywhere else. So going straight into live chat because we've got Tank 50 in the live chat who has just got a 1974 Hobie 14. Yes, great choice. That is quite an early one. Nice. I was wondering if you have any advice for learning on how to catch the wind. It seems like I can only go in two directions. He continues. I followed your one vid on how to do it, but whenever I try sailing, it's like I'm randomly running around the tramp trying to figure out what angle works to get the most speed. Okay, so just first, so what we're looking at here is we're going to start off just with some points of sail, the different angles that we can actually sail a catamaran. And so probably I would say the angles that you are finding that you can sail in is like this, which this is kind of like the most easy angles to sail at. And this is the wind, by the way. Easiest angles to sail in, and they're going to give you the most kind of satisfaction in terms of boat speed. Just going to cut away because we've started the ball rolling. Oh yes, thanks very much to Hussein, who has just chipped in to the hold on, all right, there we go, and there we go. All right, yes, so yeah, we're keeping the Q&A, by the way, ad free, and the way that we are doing that is by, rather than having advertising on the Q&A, anybody who watches the Q&A are welcome to support the Q&A initiative on Joyrider TV by using a super sticker, super thanks, super chat, or anything that is called something super. There's a little dollar bill type logo, emblem, icon next to the chat thingy at the bottom, or at least there is on the desktop version. Thanks very much. Back to the question. So this is what is called a beam reach, where we're sailing directly across the wind. And this is going to feel the most satisfying because this is when the boat has the most speed in relation to the amount of wind. Now, if we were wanting to sail from down here to up here, going this way, we would never achieve that objective. So what we can do then is we can sail on an upwind point of sail, which can be on either side of the wind, of course. And move that one. Let's make it look nice. And so just to really break it down into the sort of most simple terms, thanks very much to Justin, and happy 4th of July, South Padre Island, Texas. Yeah, thanks, Justin, for chipping in, keeping the Q&A ad-free. Nice. All right. So really basic terms. I think it's good for everybody just to go over the basics again once in a while. But when we're sailing across the wind like this, in basic terms, we're going to have the sails halfway out. We could do that by setting the traveller halfway and having the main sheet reasonably loose. Remember, basic terms. If we go further than halfway, The European sailors call the beam reach half wind, which is actually much more descriptive. So half wind, upwind, and then the other one that remains is downwind. Downwind means that we're sailing in towards the same direction where the wind is going. So upwind sails tight, half-wind sails halfway, downwind sails all the way out. So when we say all the way out, that means that we have the traveller all the way out, again, basic terms, and the main sheet as loose as it will possibly go. Now, it is possible to sail straight downwind as well, but on a catamaran, but we're talking Hobie 14. So on a Hobie 14, it is efficient to sail straight downwind. But on most catamarans, especially catamarans which have a jib, it's more efficient and it will actually get us to our downwind goal sooner if we sail on a series of these downwind angles where we have the sails loose and we'll just jibe in between. All right, so, but to get the boat going, it's generally easiest to put the boat on a half wind course or somewhere between half wind and upwind, which would be about here, called a close reach. When you're holding the boat in the water, when you're first launching, get the boat held on that close reaching angle, then jump on the boat. And we're always going to jump on the boat on what we'd call the windward side. So that's the side. If this is us close reach, the wind is coming over this side of the boat first. And we always want to, if we can, we always want to, there's no if we can, we always want to get onto the boat on the windward side. So the wind is blowing on this side. Windward means the side from which the wind is coming from, the side closer to where the wind is coming from. And that's the side of the boat we want to get onto. Once we're on the boat, then we can just give the boat a little nudge as we get on, or have the sails really loose. So if at any point, once we're on the boat, if it feels like the boat just doesn't want to go, then just make the sails as loose as possible. And don't try to steer too much if the boat isn't moving forwards, and the boat will get going. You just got to give it time. Thanks very much to Hanny for getting on board. Hello, Hanny. Great to have you in the Q&A. As always, getting on board with the Keeping the Q&A Ad-Free initiative. Thanks very much. I hope this is a valuable recap on, let's just call it the basics. But sails in tight, sails halfway, sails all the way out. And this way we can get to anywhere that we want to get to. So Tank 50, if that is answering your question sufficiently, then just let us know in the live chat. Otherwise, perhaps just elaborate slightly on your question. The thing is, the half wind is going to be the fastest, like we've said. So sailing upwind, which we'd need to do if we wanted to get like up here, and we'd sail in a series of zigzags, so going this way and then tacking. Check out the videos on tacking. And then tacking, going the other way, or like if we were going from down here to up here, we could just do one long tack halfway, and then we would get to where we want to go. It just depends on how much water you have got available to sail on. Yeah. Yeah. So upwind is not going to feel as fast. And if you try to sail too close to the wind, you might even feel that the boat is slowing down so much that it feels like it's going to stop. So if you get that far up towards the wind, and you should sail with some wind indicators on your boat. So easiest is you've got the bridle wires just here, and you could just take some VHS video tape, tie them to the bridle wires, one on each side, about 10 inches long, both of them. And what you're looking for is the closest that you're going to get up towards the wind. This is, again, basically speaking, is with these tapes coming at 45 degrees to the boat. If you go closer to the wind than that, then you're in risk of stalling. And that's when you stall a boat, it can be quite time consuming to get it going again. So it's better to keep the boat on this 45 degrees to make sure that you're not stalling. So there we go. All right. Yep, that answered the question. Thanks very much. Great stuff, Tank. And thanks for getting the ball rolling in the questions department. Okay, I think the live chat seems to be quite lively already. By the way, yes, it's tornado season, not tornado the weather, tornado the catamaran season here, coming very soon in Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece, because the mast for Bad Boy 94 is fixed. And thanks to your donations in the Tornado fundraiser, which has been running now for 3 weeks, I think, I've been able to pay for the repair to the mast. And I'm just waiting now for a means of transporting the mast back here to Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece, so that then I can re-rig the mast, fit it out, get the boat together, and sea trials will commence to see how fast the new look Bad Boy 94 Tornado is going to be. So thank you so much to everybody who has donated to the Tornado fundraiser. We're still a little way off the target of what we're trying to achieve. So if you've been, if you didn't know about it, then please do chip in. Otherwise, yes, there will be videos coming all but as soon as this whole process with getting the boat back together starts. There'll be a lot of Tornado features coming on Joyrider TV. Other features that are coming up. The next one coming up is the new update speed stick video will be out on Sunday, although channel members will be able to get early access to that. Yeah, and there's some, it's been going on the speed stick. So if you are going out sailing this weekend, I would say definitely take a GPS, get on the speed stick, because at the end of the day, why not? Unless you haven't got a GPS device, but you can just take your telephone, running an app like the Water Speed app. I think there is a free version, so you don't have to pay for it. Works on iOS and Android devices. There we go. All right, so yeah, so we have Hussein in Egypt. Greetings to everyone. Thanks for tuning in, Hussein. Always a pleasure. All right, Justin says, looking forward to Hilton Head this year. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, really looking forward to meeting so many of you guys when I'm hitting Hilton Head in the end of October. Yeah, and I think the uptake for the coaching at Hilton Head has been pretty good. So I think even the coaching is going to be a really cool sort of like means of meeting loads of people who are Joyrider TV supporters, which is really nice as well. If coming to America seems a little bit too far, then yes, I am going to be at Lake Como, Italy at the start of August for the Nacra 50th anniversary regatta at Lake Como, Italy, start of August. So if you want to come and say hello, if you're in the area, or if you want to get involved with the event, if you happen to have a Nacra, I know there's a lot of Nacras in Europe. So come get involved with that event, and it is going to be a great time. Events news. Okay, so we've got Merlin on board. Yes, Merlin was on board last week asking about the mine shaft. Merlin says, would you go over would I go over, as in talk about, traveler settings when on a reach? I've been leaving mine too far out. Okay, yeah, while we've got this on the board. So 2 ways we can look at setting the traveler. The first way that we'll look at it is if we're not trying to reduce the amount of power on the boat, which would for most boats and people be up to about 12 knots of wind. Let's say 12 knots of wind. We're going to say 12 knots of wind. So when we're looking for power, basic traveler positions will be upwind. We're going to have, this is our traveler, by the way, if you hadn't quite got that. Upwind, we're going to have the traveler in the middle. Okay, good start. And then when we're not trying to lose power, when we get onto the half wind course, we don't want to be easing too much of the traveler. I would ease it, of course, depends on the type of boat, how big the boat is, but I would ease it only slightly, like, I don't know, 8 inches out from the center. Is that correct? I've got a tape measure here. Yeah, about 20 centimeters or 8 inches from the center for the beam reach or half wind when you're not looking to lose power. And then this is the bit which I think some people do differently. But when we're going downwind on the broad reach, I would set it no more than halfway between the tow strap. The tow straps are generally about halfway. So halfway between the tow strap and the outer limit of the range of where your traveler can go. So what is that actually? Halfway between halfway and all the way would be about 3/4 of the way up, maybe 2/3 between the center and the outside of the range. Because what we're looking to do when we're sailing the boat downwind is we're trying to put twist into the mainsail. And the way that we get twist in the mainsail is by having the traveler in a little bit looser on the main sheet, and that puts twist in the sail. And what twist is very good for is allowing the boat to accelerate the most out of every increase in wind, and it means that we're less likely to stall the boat. If we have the traveler all the way out with a bit more main sheet on, there is going to be a greater tendency to stall, and the boat isn't going to be allowed to accelerate as much in the gusts there. So that is the first way of using the traveler. The second way, all right, we've got a new traveler car. The second way of using the traveler is going to be kind of in conjunction with that, but also with wind strength when we're trying to lose power. So the way that we know that we need to use the traveler to help us reduce power is if to be able to sail the boat on any course, more likely upwind and reaching, on any course, if we have to continually all the time be sheeting the main sheet out, then we can be much more efficient than rather than having the main sheet eased all of the time. We can let off the traveler a bit. A bit means as much as is necessary. So like for upwind, if you're sailing in a really strong wind, you might have the traveler out as far as the tow strap for upwind. But what we're trying to achieve is to be able to have the main sheet in tight, because that is going to give us a better sail shape and more control over the mainsail when it starts getting windy. And it also means that we're not going to have to use as much main sheet to control the power. Like if we keep the traveler in the middle when it's windy, we might have to work with like a meter of main sheet to control the power, because we've got very little control over the mainsail. Whereas if we travel out, then we get some sort of I don't know what you'd call it, but like an efficiency multiplier, where we, as we travel out, we'll get to a stage where we only have to work with half as much main sheet as that to control the power, and so on. And that goes for the reach as well, the half wind. If having the traveler at the tow strap on the half wind, you're having to ease sheet all the time, then let's ease the traveler a bit more and then work the main sheet from that position. Are we okay with that? I think so. Okay, the only thing I didn't mention is if you're sailing a Hobie 14, or I need to find this out actually before I come to the Hobie Wave event at Corpus Christi in November, the Hobie Alta Cup. Do we sail the Hobie Wave straight downwind? But for straight downwind, then it would be traveler all the way out, because we're trying to open that barn door, as my friend Craig told me, open the barn door as far as possible to catch as much wind as possible if we are ever sailing straight downwind. Okay, so there you go, Merlin. I hope that is helpful. And everybody else, I hope this is being extremely informative so far. Cheers. Okie dokie. All right, we've got Dirk on board from Ottertail Lake, Minnesota. A hot, steamy, windy 4th of July here. Yeah, Dirk is now one of the more prominent sailors on the speed stick, because you can have multiple entries on the speed stick if you are sailing different boats. So Dirk is on there with a Hobie 18 and a Hobie 21, and I think the Hobie 14 as well. Am I right? Yeah, so if you're able to get on a different boat or have somebody else steering the boat, then you could be on the speed stick more than once. Like if you're going out for a sail with your friend, go out for a sail, and if you both feel confident to steer the boat, go for a few runs, then switch, reset the GPS, of course, and then you'll get 2 entries on the stick. Yeah. All right. Mr. Tony KP is on board in Ebeltoft, Denmark. Nice to have you with us. Yes, Hanny's on board, as we mentioned, in Amsterdam. Felix is with us. Hello, Felix. All right. It's really nice to know where everybody's coming from, because it's just nice to know that here's me sat in my little studio in Vasiliki Lefkas, Greece, or fairly close to, and I'm hitting the 4 corners of the world, which is awake right now. So perhaps not so much in Australia or New Zealand, because it's very much bedtime at the moment down there. But I think everywhere else we are saying hello. All right, so Felix says, have a few ideas for future content. I found the main halyard shackle video super helpful. Something everybody seems to struggle with. Yeah, yeah, I was very pleased to get that one done, because we see it a lot actually at Wild Wind Sailing Holidays here. And when people are trying to drop the mainsail, especially when it's got this locking mechanism, the first one we talked about with the ring. Can I do that? Is that with the ring and the hook, where the ring slides up, goes onto the hook? This system can really upset people, and it is a real shame if after you've been sailing, to get your sail down, you actually have to tip your boat over. We shouldn't have to do that. We should be able to get that system working correctly. One thing I didn't mention in that video is one thing that can make things much easier, as well as lubricating your sail and your mast track just by getting the sail wet, is also to kind of periodically check the pulley, the sheath, the wheel, which is at the top of the mast, because these wheels, where the halyard runs over, these wear over time, and the bit that wears, I've not got anything similar here, have I not? Is the all right, I've got this. Is rather than the outside of the wheel wearing, the bit that wears is actually the center of the wheel, and that gets bigger. And as that gets bigger, the whole wheel is allowed to move downwards. So sorry if that's the way up there is. It can move downwards, and then that wheel on a boat like a Hobie 18, for example, that wheel can move downwards and actually jam in the top of the mast track, which means it no longer turns. So your halyard, rather than having a running wheel for it to go over, all it's got is like a smooth surface where it rubs over all the time, which makes everything so much more difficult. So a few checks there can really help. All right, so Felix's future ideas. What do we think, everybody? No pressure, Felix. Rope guide. So sheets, halyards, what to choose, what to look for. Sail trimming prior to sailing. So using the leech and luff lines and batten tension. Yeah, this is all good stuff. We have done some of this before, but one of my intentions is to, like, I think let's call them the real videos with real information. They kind of started about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, maybe a bit more. And some of them, although the information is still absolutely bang on, the production perhaps could be improved a little bit. So perhaps one of my intentions is to go back to the older videos and not to take them down, but to do a fresh version or fresh video on the same topic, just to have it presented a bit better. There we go. Thank you, Felix. Okay, yeah, Hussein agrees. That was a great video. Thank you. Hans is on board. Hans is in Vasiliki Lefkas, Greece. Always a pleasure having Hans in town. And Hans says hello to cat sailors out there. All right, we've got Wislan in Brazil. Great to have you with us, Wislan, in Brazil. Like I said, hitting the four corners of the planet, which is awake right now. Thanks for tuning in. All right, we got Jochen on board. Hello, Jochen. Got David 23. Oh dear. Let's go, Joe. You are a legend. Yes, thank you very much, David. Hi from Iowa, Great Lakes, blowing 15 to 25 today. Nice. You know, it would be great to have this teleport machine so that I could come and visit. 15 to 20. Yep, I'm coming. Just getting the teleport machine. On that topic, yeah, one of the discussions, getting a bit off topic here, but I'm going to. What would you prefer, a time machine or a teleport machine? I've had discussions with my son about this, and I'm going with the teleport machine, because with a time machine, you'll always end up in the same place. So it'd be much more limited than a teleport machine. There we go. That's what I think on that topic. I know that someone was going to ask the question. All right, we got Derek on board in Okanagan, British. Sorry about the pronunciation. Is that British Columbia, which would be Canada, I believe. My geographical knowledge, I like to think, since I've started doing things like Show Us Your Cat, and the speed stick has started getting ever so slightly better. All right, Jochen says, almost nobody seems to 3-sail reach Formula 18s with both helm and crew on the wire. Are there arguments against it when not in a race? Will something break? That is a fine question. So what we're asking, I think it doesn't really need clarifying the question at all. But when we're sailing on a 3-sail reach, a 3-sail reach is basically what we're calling, because half wind, that's a reach, that's a beam reach. Downwind, that is a broad reach. So a 3-sail reach is any of these points of sail when we have the third sail up, the third sail being the spinnaker. Now, why is it that people aren't, or there's not much evidence of people free sail reaching with the spinnaker up? It's a very good question, because it is really good fun. Now, one of the reasons that we're not sailing like on a half wind course, for example, with the spinnaker up when it's getting windy, is with the spinnaker, our main method of depowering or taking power off the boat is to turn more downwind. So if we try to maintain a half wind course when it's windy, we're not able to do that, and we will actually capsize if we try to stay on that course. So we have to go more downwind. But I think the main meat of this question is, why aren't we double trapezing with the spinnaker up? There is an element of control that I think probably 70% of sailors sailing with the spinnaker would rather helm the boat from sat on the trampoline or on the boat. But the other reason why not is because these are boats that have been designed for racing, and in a race for these boats, you're mostly sailing upwind and downwind, and our best VMG, velocity made good, which means the compromise between angle and speed. So if we turn towards the wind, we'll go faster, but we won't be going downwind as quickly, as directly. Whereas if we turn more downwind, we'll be going more towards where we want to go, but much more slowly. So there is a definitive angle, which is what we would call our best VMG. And that is the angle that we sail at. And that angle on most boats, which are, well, I think most catamarans which are not foiling, our best VMG is to have the helm or one person on the boat and the crew out on the trapeze. So that is the why. on like the Nacra 17 foiling boat, different game, double trapezing, because the boat's going so much faster, and so they have so much more power being generated by the fact that they're going that much faster. But on the conventional catamarans, single trapezing. But now that you've asked, yes, okay, double trapezing with the kite up, video coming very soon. All right, thanks for the question. But I wouldn't say that there should be any concern for things breaking, as long as you've got your main sheet cranked in tight to support the mast. As long as you've got your dagger boards lifted, then there shouldn't be much else. And then the only other thing is when we're double trapezing with the spinnaker, there's going to be much more load on the spinnaker pole. So it's just really important to make sure that we have the correct amount of tension in. These are the pole bridle wires that I've just drawn on here. So we need to make sure that we've got the right tension in those pole bridles. There we go. All right, continuing. Derek, who I believe is in Canada. No, Derek, yes. Would you say the biggest factor to carry, what would you say is the biggest factor to carry speed through a turn? All right, if when you're saying to carry speed through a turn, you're talking about tacking, then I would say the biggest factor is reducing the tacking angle before you go into the tack. So what I would always do and always suggest that people do is, if you're sailing upwind like this, before you go for a tack, we just want to sail the boat a bit closer to the wind, like as close to the wind as we can, but so that we're not risking stalling the boat. So this is one of the reasons why we're cranking the main sheet in a bit more before the tack, so that we can sail closer to the wind. And the closer to the wind that we can sail, it means we only have to turn that angle until it's a done deal. So we turn that angle, then we're head to wind, and then we let the main sheet off. If we've got a jib on the boat, we'll leave the jib in the original position, and that's going to help to pull us off the wind on the new side. So reducing the tacking angle is number one for tacking. All right, we've got Storen on board. Hello, Storen. Nice to have you with us. Oh, who is from the town of the Pied Piper. Now, is that Bremen? No, that's a different animal music story. You'll have to tell us what town that is. Hamlin, of course it is. Yes. Right, very good. And Storen says, would a junk rig be as good as the Bermuda rig downwind? Now, this is a little bit outside of the realms of my knowledge, but I believe these junk rigs, which I think were originally Chinese, were very efficient for downwind sailing, because a junk, I haven't done very much research on this, but a junk rig would be kind of like, there's the mast, and then it's almost like it's almost like a spinnaker with battens. I think that is what a junk rig looks like. So you're more likely to find a rig. Well, you are not going to find a rig like this on a catamaran, which we talk about normally on Joyrider TV. But very interesting all the same. So more likely to be on a fairly old-fashioned keelboat or yacht. And this is going to be, I think, faster potentially. If there was a modern junk rig designed and built, the Bermudan rig is basically very much the rig that we see on most sailing boats, where it has it. If we're sailing straight downwind, we're not presenting as much sail to the wind, and especially not as much sail high up. And it's having that sail high up which is really going to make a difference on the downwind, I believe. All right, nice one. All right, so Felix is in Berlin, by the way, Berlin, Germany. All right. All right, just continuing. All right, there's a bit of chat in the live chat. That's fine. Do talk amongst yourselves in the live chat, but I just have to scan through it to see where I am getting back. All right, this is a good question from Alex. Hello, Alex, who says, where are you from? I'm from the UK. I'm from the east coast of the UK, but I have now lived in Greece for full time for 13 years. And that's where I'm from. And that's where I live. All right. So we've got Man on board. Yo, Man. Hobie FX1. When would you ever have both dagger boards fully down, or is there an advantage only having them halfway down? Okay, so you might have seen in the high wind FX1 videos, I'm only putting the dagger boards halfway down. Now, with the dagger boards on any boat with dagger boards, in fact, when it gets really windy, the boat is much easier to sail. It's much more forgiving if we don't put as much dagger board down. So it means when we have the dagger board all the way down, that's the full amount of resistance to stop the boat from sliding sideways, which when it's really windy is going to make the hull lift a lot more quickly and readily. So by having the dagger board lifted in strong winds, it just makes the boat, I would describe it as a little bit softer to sail. So when we get a gust, it's like having a bit of suspension. Gust hits, then after a second the hull lifts, whereas with the dagger board all the way down, gust hits and immediately the hull lifts. And even if racing, I would sail the boat in, let's say, in 18 knots or more of wind with about that much dagger board lifted on the upwind legs. Whereas if it was less wind than that, then yes, upwind, definitely both dagger boards all the way down, and then downwind, dagger boards up. So there's approximately, what's that? That's at 20 centimeters again of dagger board above the deck on the FX1 for sailing downwind. So there we go. So lifting the dagger boards is another means of depowering the boat. Now, one thing you can't do if you sail a boat which has pivoting centerboards, then you can't put those up halfway, because with the pivoting centerboards, I'm just going to use this hull to put my centerboards on. If we put them up when they're down, they'll be like that. But because it pivots, if we put it halfway up, what that's doing is bringing the center of lateral resistance further back, and the boat is going to handle really badly. Unless the one time when you would do it is if you were going to be sailing the boat without any rudders. Yes, I've just filmed another rudderless video, by the way, which was on the Minicat 420 inflatable sailing boat. And did it rudderless well? Oh, gosh. Best boat, best catamaran I have ever sailed for rudderless sailing. Yeah, that video will be coming starting next week. But it's even if you have no interest in inflatable catamarans, it's the, what would you call it, the main points of how you get the boat do what you do what you want to do without a rudder. This can be applied to normal sailing, which is going to make your normal sailing more efficient. So that is why these rudderless videos are coming, because it just helps. There we go. All right. Scrolling down. What was it I used to say? Something like scrolling through. All right. We've got LP on board. All right, LP. Nice to have you with us. LP was recently at Club Med in Cancun, Mexico, where they had a small fleet of Hobie waves. They instructed us that we were not allowed to jibe, I should think that is, as it will break the boats. I own a Getaway. Can I jibe safely? Yes, you can. Yeah, I think in some sort of beach clubs or sailing places where it's kind of, if it's like a hotel which has a boat on the beach, rather than it being a sailing school, they might, it's a little bit strange, but they might ask you to avoid jibing because there is a bit more danger involved with the jibe. Danger of capsize, danger of, if it was a boat with a boom, hitting your head on the boom, that sort of thing. So that's the only reason why I would think that they might have said that. But yes, you can definitely jibe with any type of catamaran as long as it's got a rudder, I think. Okay, so Thorn G is on board. Hi, Thorn G. Good to have you with us. Thanks for the strong wind rudderless video. This is pure knowledge gold in case of the rudders falling off. Yeah, exactly. All right. So we've been going for 47 minutes now. So if there are any other questions live, if they could be accompanied by a super chat, super sticker, or whatever it's called today, to help keep the Q&A ad free, then that would be great. But while you're thinking about that, I am just going to go on to the preloaded questions, which we haven't even looked at today because it has been so lively in the lively chat. All right. So first one is coming from UKB Goldie, who says, this would be in response to that exact video that Fawn G was just mentioning. How do you steer when going backwards downwind? Yeah, so two ways of going backwards. But always, every method of going backwards is going to involve putting the boat into the wind first. So if you're not into the wind and you want to start backing up for any reason, a good way of doing it is just to grab hold of the boom, pull it into the center of the boat. It does the same job as sheeting in, but it's just really quick and direct. Just grab the boom, pull it into the middle of the boat. And then when you do that, because if the boom is out here, then we'll have this kind of weather vaning effect where if the boat isn't really moving forwards, pulling the boom into the center is going to get the boat into the wind like that. So that is the first step to any rudder backwards sailing. And then the backwards that we were showing in the rudderless video was, if we take our, in fact, these are going to be the people today. If we've got 2 people on the boat, 1 person on each bow. And then the reason why it works so well to get the people on the bow like this is because the bow of the boat is the sharp, more knife-like section of the hull. And by digging that part of the hull into the water, it means you've got these 2 knives, which are like rudders, that will hold the boat straight as you go backwards. So it's like having 2 rudders, which are dead straight, holding the boat in that position, which is why we're going to the bows of the boat. To go backwards like this, though, one thing we do need to make sure is that the rudders are, if we've got rudders, are definitely up. Because if the rudders are down at all, have we got a rudder here? Yes, we have. Then occasionally it might catch in the water, and it's either going to flip to one side or the other. And then we're actually going to start steering like that as we go backwards. And it will be very difficult to keep the boat going straight downwind. But the main thing with going backwards is we do need to keep the boat going pretty much straight downwind. Although I've never tried it, there is some, I've heard, I'm going to try it actually, that you can actually go upwind backwards. I know, coming soon. All right, I'm not going to dwell on that because I haven't done the research, and don't like to talk about things too much unless I've done the research. So we are going to try that one. Yeah, so how can we steer when we're going backwards? If we're going backwards like this, well, like I said, we want to keep it going pretty straight backwards, main sheet loose. And to get it going a bit quicker, we can hold the jib like this. And of course, there's going to be a little bit of directional pull from the jib as the wind is hitting here. It's going to pull a bit that way, which is maybe going to send us that way a bit more. So if we wanted it to go a bit more the other way, we could throw the jib across to the crew. They could pull it a bit, but it's really limited the amount that we can actually get that to work. The other way we can potentially steer the boat when sailing backwards like this would be if we took less weight on that hull. That's going to sink that hull more, and that again is going to make the boat turn that way towards the hull which is deeper in the water. There we go. The other way of going backwards, of course, is when we've got the rudders down and we're sat on the trampoline, and there it really is just a case of using the rudders in reverse. But what we have to be aware of before we start doing this is you really do have to have a very firm hand on the rudders when you're steering backwards, because the water is going over, of course, the back edge first. And which means that the water is going to try to flick from one side to the other. So with it going like that, and when it goes to one side or the other, the rudders are really going to try to just go all the way across in one direction or the other. So that is what we have to pay attention to a bit if we're going backwards whilst sat on the boat. So there we go. So I hope that is the answer we were looking for, because that is the one that is being delivered just now. Okay. back, dipping a toe back into the live chat. Hussein says, Joe went sailing without one sail, now without rudders, next without sails. Yes, I did actually do it the other day. Yes, without sails and rudders, that would be one. All right, Matthew's on board in Baltimore, USA. Happy 4th of July, Matthew. Hope you're having a good day. And you've got a good day planned in front of you. And good times. And believe, do you have, is it turkey on the 4th of July? Is that the dining choice? A fine choice, unless you happen to be a turkey. Okay. Next preloaded question. This is from Ayrton, who has just bought a 1986 Hobie 16. Congratulations, Ayrton. What a great choice. So many great boats out there. And it's so great when these great boats are finding new homes with people who are going to use them, because there's so many great boats out there which are just sat. And over time, kind of like, I don't want to use the word decaying, but that is the word that springs to mind, just degrading over time, not getting used. What a waste. And it is so good when people are buying boats so that they can use them, not so that they can buy a boat because they think it's a nice idea and then it never gets used. Let's use our boats. Thanks very much, Fawn G, for the super chat, super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad-free. I hope you're all enjoying the lack of ads in the Q&A. Of course, if you've got a YouTube premium subscription, it'll be no different. I signed up for a free month, actually. I've quite enjoyed it. And but I'm not going to continue just because it's another subscription. All right. So Ayrton says, sailing on a lake, is it necessary to have a motor for launching and landing? All right. It depends on the nature of the lake. Like, I think there was one episode of Show Us Your Cat where if this was the lake where the boat was launched from, there was kind of like some sort of, it might not have been a lake, it might just have been a big like opening in this waterway, but there was a fairly tricky looking river that fed into the lake. So, and the launching spot over here, and I think it was getting on for a mile to go from the launching spot to the sailing spot, which if that was the case or something similar to that, then yes, I would say having some sort of motor is really going to help, because to paddle that far, if there's only just enough space for your boat to go down here, and perhaps you've got trees on both sides, so no wind. This is some really good drawing going on, by the way. Yeah, no wind, tight space, and you don't want to paddle for a mile, then yes, motor, good idea. But if you're launching from a place like here, then I would say really no need for a motor. The other requirement for a motor would be if you were thinking of doing some perhaps long distance sailing and you just wanted to make sure that if the wind dropped, you could still get to where it is that you want to go. Then there's another reason for getting a motor. But other than that, I would say no need. We just need to be able to know that we can sail our boat in every direction that we might want to go in. So that is part number one. Okay, so part number two from Ayrton says, is it okay to leave the boat moored next to a jetty So if this is a jetty or a floating pontoon or something, now I believe a jetty is one that is fixed, so a jetty doesn't move up and down with the water like if you have tide. A pontoon floats, so that moves up and down with tide. A jetty doesn't, because it's usually, a jetty is on what would be called piles, like some sort of sticks that goes into the floor. And the other one, I believe, is a wharf, WHARF. A wharf is actually a concrete, similar, but it's concrete into the ground, I believe. Okay, so would you leave a boat, your 1986 16, next to a jetty? I would not. Definitely not overnight, because a boat like the ones that we talk about here, they're small enough that means that we should be able to, one way or another, get it onto land. So to get the boat onto land, there are many ways of doing this. We'll talk about this in a second. So I would say definitely not on a jetty, because for me, peace of mind first. Even if we have some sort of fenders in here, if there is wind overnight, what I would not want to do is have to worry about the boat. And what I definitely wouldn't want to do is have to, at 3 o'clock in the morning, go to where we've left the boat because we're so worried about it. Because if one of these fenders comes out, then when we go back to the boat the next time, the hull is going to be seriously damaged. All right. Second one was, what about a swinging mooring? Now, swinging mooring, slightly better. So like if we either had a mooring or an anchor that is reliable, then better, because it's not going to hit into anything. But it's always going to be better to take the boat out of the water completely at the end of the day. Like if you're going sailing for a day and you're sailing off the same beach, maybe you're having a barbecue on the beach, very nice, 4th of July, and you're going to be taking the kids out, bringing the boat back. You don't want to pull it out of the water every time, but you've got a decent anchor. You can leave the anchor in the water with a buoy or buoy on it. And then when you come in from sailing, you could just clip the anchor line onto the boat. Boat will sit there nicely while you go for a burger. And then a bit later on, you go for another sail without having to put much effort in to wrangling the boat. But again, overnight, there's always a worry leaving a boat like what we're talking about, these types of boats, on the water overnight. And the other thing that I wouldn't like is you will get some sort of over time growth on the hulls, like what do you call it, like kind of like the hulls will start having seaweed grow on them, and that's really disappointing. So I'd say no. There we go. That is what I'm going to say. Okay, final question from Ayrton, and then I'm coming back to the live chat. Is the masthead float, is it necessary? First part. It certainly is helpful. It increases the safety of the boat. If you're sailing in shallow water, it is going to mean that your mast is never going to be in danger of going into the bottom. So yes, I would say it is very useful, especially if you're sailing in water which for a Hobie 16 would be if the water is less than like 4 or 5 meters deep, then having a masthead float might be a good idea to prevent the mast from being able to stick in the bottom if you did capsize. Because when you capsize, I would say generally, if it's windy, maybe a third of the capsizes will result in the boat inverting if you don't have a masthead float. So if the water is shallow, then yes, a masthead float is a good idea. Now, what are the downsides of the masthead float? The main two are that the first one is when the boat is on its side, masthead float there, then the boat is going to go downwind really quickly. Sorry, I haven't drawn that quite as nicely as I could. So here's the water. The boat is going to, if the wind is blowing onto the bottom of the trampoline or anywhere, because the masthead float is effectively becoming like another hull, and the boat's just going to go downwind really quickly. We've done tests on this, and even the fastest swimmers in 20 knots of wind can't keep up with a catamaran getting blown downwind on its side. Whereas if the boat is allowed to invert, then it's hardly going to drift at all, because the sail is going to be under the water, acting like a sea anchor. The boat's going to stay in that position much better, which makes it safer in terms of being separated from the boat. But the risk that we have, which the masthead float is also totally eliminating, is if we end up after a capsize, here we are, we're here, splashy, splashy. If the boat was allowed to invert and we're here, we could get stuck under the trampoline. Now, this is one of the biggest risks or dangers in catamaran sailing. And I think it is very sensible just to address this periodically, because when everything's going well, we're having a good time, we're going fast, we're looking cool, you don't even worry about it. You're like, this is great fun. But we should be aware that there is this risk of getting stuck underneath the trampoline if the boat inverts and we don't get out from that space promptly after the capsize. There we go. All right, so that's the pros and the cons of the masthead float. The other downside of the masthead float, of course, is more windage at the top of the mast. So if we're going for a speed run, yes, it's going to slow us down a little bit. The last part of the question was, is there a cheaper alternative to buying the Baby Bob from Hobie, where I think they're a good couple of $100 US for a masthead float? I'm going back to some more testing, actually, and I'm going to test it on the Hobie 16 as well. And that is going to be coming up next week. Masthead alternative material use. There we go. All right, I'd like to say thank you very much to LP for the super sticker, super chat, super thanks. Keeping the Q&A ad-free. Thanks very much. So the Getaway has trouble crossing over while tacking. Yeah, so like we were saying before, our number one kind of thing that we can do to tack more, to have more success in tacking, is to reduce the tacking angle, because the Getaway is a boat that has a jib, and all that we need to do is get the boat turned from here to head to wind, because as soon as the boat's head to wind, the wind will come in the other side of the jib. And then as long as we let the mainsail off, leave the jib where it is, it's going to push the bow of the boat round. So before we go into attack, we'll bring the boat as close to the wind as possible, but so that the boat is still sailing forwards. And then we'll go into the tack, main sheet tight, jib backs, main sheet loose at that point, keep turning. The jib's going to push the front of the boat through the wind, and then we're through. Now, boats that have these big kind of like the hulls, which have got quite a wall to them, like the Getaway, can be difficult to get to go into the wind when it's strong wind, which again is why we need to sail the boat close to the wind before the tack. Now, this can be counterintuitive, because to get the boat to sail this close to the wind before the tack, you need to really crank the main sheet in. If you stayed on this point of sail and you crank the main sheet in, the hull will lift and you might feel like you're going to capsize. So as you pull the main sheet in, we're just going to turn the boat into the wind, but we're going to establish this course first and then push it through the tack. There you go, LP. I hope that helps. All right, Matthew says in Baltimore, I know mooring isn't recommended for Hobie 16s. I don't know if that's how Matthew talks. What about making a platform in the water? Yes, I've seen these. People have these platforms that raises the boat out of the water mostly, but where waves can still hit it. I would, yeah. So if you were talking about making like a frame like this in the water, let's draw on our sea level about here. So then maybe it could even be a bit higher. So then when we finish sailing, the boat sits on here, kind of above the water. I've seen quite a few pictures of that and people who do that, and it seems like a pretty decent idea. Just, I think, fairly challenging to engineer. Oh, Graham says, I use a boat lift. They make them specifically for catamarans, but you can also modify a Sea-Doo. That's one of these like jet bike sort of things, lifts. There we go. Yeah, so great alternative there. Okay, last one for today. We'll be going an hour and a quarter. Okay, this is from SA. Hi. Question about using beach cats for camping style trips. Nice. How does a heavily loaded cat sail? For example, an inflatable one with 400 or more kilograms of load, including passengers. Yeah, that's going to be too much weight. I'm just going to lay that out there now. So what would be the right amount of, let's just say, this is a good question to finish on, actually. What is a realistic amount of weight? So if we have a few, let's have 3 different classes of boat. So we've got the Minicat, which is the inflatable boat of choice, which I am representing, the Minicat. Then we've got the Hobie 16. We'll call that the industry standard. And then we've got the F18 kind of size. That's what we're talking about, is the size. That could be a Hurricane 5.9. That could be a Prindle 19, something with large voluminous hulls. So if we'll sail all these, the Minicat, we're not going to sail the Minicat, I don't think, on a long distance camping trip with more than 2 people on board. So 2 people, I'm just going to get my conversions here because I know that we all like to speak in pounds. Would be, let's say, oh, that should be an easy one. Yeah. 200 or 440 pounds. Yeah, so that would be the amount of comfortable weight of sailor. And then in addition to that, how much luggage? If you think about like when you go on a flight, you get 20 kilos or so baggage allowance. I would think that should be the amount that we're aiming for if we're going on a sort of camping trip maximum. So, and so luggage, so we could just take a naught off, would be 20 or 44 pounds. So that would be the most that we would really want to take on a boat like a Minicat 420. Now, the Hobie 16, even though it's a bigger boat, fiberglass boat, the hulls have actually got less volume on a Hobie 16 than we've got on an inflatable catamaran, which means that the amount of weight that we're going to want to go with on our camping trip, yes, we could probably go a bit more, because although we've got less volume, it's distributed over a greater area, and we've got the added bonus of having more power, which means even if the boat is loaded up a bit, we could still have the boat sailing nicely. So I would go for, like, you could go for a third person, albeit a small person. So just putting this into here to get the conversion, and there it is. 240, which is 529. Don't go over 529. Don't go for 530, whatever you do. And I'm going to stick to the same amount of luggage, this 20 and 44 in the luggage department. And then on a bigger boat with more volume in it, we could go a bit more still. So perhaps you could go with another 20 on there, which would be, let's see if the maths can cope with this. So if we were going with 260 kilos, we know 20 is 44. So 5, gosh, when did we last do sums then? 573, is that right? And then again, sticking to a similar amount of luggage as before, because anything more than that is excessive. But perhaps you're going for a couple of days. You might need a couple of days worth of food. Yeah. Other consideration, just to finish with, would be, before I consider this, hello, Ryan, Maui, Hawaii. Thanks very much. Ryan is helping to keep the Q&A ad-free. Yes, he is, with a super sticker or super chat. I think it's a super chat, maybe. So thanks very much, Ryan. Great to have you on board. Just talking about camping. Quite keen to do a few of these trips, especially with the weather in Greece at the moment is hot, I think we'd call it. Yeah, so the other consideration is where you put the luggage and what happens to your luggage if the boat capsizes. There's always a chance. So I would say, if best place for the luggage is to have it somewhere fairly neutral. So if you can get hold of like a waterproof, this would be the best, waterproof sausage-like bag, and for that bag to go just behind the front beam, because there the weight of your luggage is going to be the most neutral. You don't want to have it too far back because the boat's going to pop a wheelie. You don't want to have it like all over the trampoline in a mess, because if you did capsize, that would be horrendous. But a sausage-like bag, or like a windsurfing, or loads of different sports have like quite a long bag, like windsurfing quiver bag might not be waterproof, but it will certainly contain all your gear in one sausage-like bag. I'm not going to say sausage-like bag again. I think I've said that enough times. But so that it's all in one place, so that if you do capsize, there's not going to be stuff going everywhere. There we go. All right. Oh, I'd just like to say also hello to Gabriel in Seville, Spain. Yes, we are hitting the corners of the world. That is awake. Hello, Dopey Dave in Cyprus. Yes. Graham says maybe the mainsail bag could be a good one to use. Yeah, definitely. The Flying Fish Arts. What's it called? The Flying Fish Arts sail bag. Very good. Yeah, you could use one of those. Not waterproof, but yes, very good. All right, Dopey Dave is jumping in and helping to keep the Q&A ad-free. Thanks very much, Dave. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Before you tune out, if you could hit the like button, I think 1 hour and 22 minutes is enough. It's time for the next thing. Good luck. See you at the speed stick video on Sunday. If you're going out sailing, get on the speed stick, not cheered up if you're already there. Otherwise, yes, thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV. Have a great 4th of July.